keep quiet and listen for a
Just
moment.
listen.
Listen and keep quiet.
Wait, my intention meaning is that
Yeah, you.
intention in the sense not the karma, not the hate. But
We know what you mean.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
So, and we're trying to explain that intention is only when it's kusla or akusla.
So what we call Chetana in English then to make it fit to every category, because
It doesn't
Chetana-
matter what we call it. We do use the word intention, but when we explain it that in detail,
I know what you're getting. Intention of yours meaning is mean the hate, mean the cause.
Yeah.
I get
And
it.
I know
But-
what you're saying too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Like Patsa, Chivit interior has to arise in Chit.
Vincent, overestimation. This was a topic that came up, and you actually quoted from where Nina had quoted from the Dhamma Sankani, and it mentions about whenever there is overestimation, adimana, it's a kind of mana. Like if I think that I have better writing skills than Roti and it's overestimation, it sounded like it's mana. And Ajarn said no, and you were saying, oh, but it says it in the Dhamma Sankani and Nina has quoted it, and there was some confusion. Did you understand what Ajarn was saying?
About Adimana
Yes.
not being overestimating?
About why overestimation, which we could use the word adimana, why it's not always a kind of mana.
Okay, so the question is, when Adimana means overestimation, but overestimation is not necessarily Adimana. Okay,
That's the
other way
point.
around. Okay.
Like, I may say I've got better writing skills than my friend, or they've got better writing skills, and it may not be true. In fact, my friend may have better writing skills.
It could be just
but when
thinking,
one
right?
thinks like that, it may be with mana or not with mana.
Right.
So when in the text it's referring to adimana as a kind
Right.
of mana,
Right.
it's referring to when one has that wrong idea.
Yep.
But it's with mana when it's oneself that is important, when one's thinking about oneself.
Right.
Like if one thinks one has more panya than someone and it's not true. One may be thinking about one's own importance and then it's adimana. But one may just be
wrong.
making a wrong calculation
Right.
without mana. So that was
Yeah.
the point. Was that okay?
Yeah,
that was the
okay.
point.
Or
Yeah.
another way to put that would be not every comparison between oneself and another is necessarily mana, because it could be for some purpose other than, could be unrelated to one's own self-importance.
Yeah. I imagine even an arahant could wrongly estimate without any Adimana, right?
They may have an idea that they're taller than someone
Right,
else,
right,
but
right. No
it may
idea,
just be
right.
a common miscalculation. Or
Actually, the meaning of mana can be the meaning of comparing also.
it
They-
can be, but not necessarily so.
Like
And there can be comparing that isn't mana. That's the point. Comparing rightly or wrongly. So it's not necessarily mana, and mana is not necessarily comparing.
yeah, like I'm higher than that. I'm same like that person, or I'm lower, or whatever. 9 mana. There are 9 kind of mana.
But that may be with mana and it may not be.
Depend
So
on-
it depends, yes.
like suppose Sariputta know that Buddha is the who higher than them, but not by comparing, but know by kusala, like kiriya chitta, mean the good chitta. You can understand that, appreciate that.
Even now, right?
Yeah, even now we can.
It's
also.
all of, it's now, so unless it is
Useless.
the mana at this moment, it can't be known. So when there's overestimation like now, or under it can be known at that moment only whether it's mana appearing. And another point that you brought up in a discussion, I'm just mentioning these because you're here and it's your last day, and in case there's anything further you want to discuss about it. And this was with regard to death, and you were talking about the objects of the citas before death, like kama, karma nimitta and the other one, and about these special citas and the objects. But I think the point, as Ajarn always makes, is it could be now. So what is the object of citta now, the visible object that is seen as a result of past karma, for example? So this is like, or thinking about what has just been seen. So this is like a sign of karma right now. So those last cittas and the objects, they're given special names, but actually it's just like now. But the only difference is, and this is a question for Ajarn, when Vincent was saying, oh, and what about, you were talking about the image of future life, for example, or future destiny as one of the objects. But that isn't like now, like thinking about seeing, thinking about the sign of seeing is just like now, but image of future life, that nimitta, isn't just like now. Do you have any comment?
Thinking can think of anything, and we don't know what is the object of thinking before death, even it is this or that or that.
So actually it's just like now. It can be
Just-
thinking about next moment, thinking about last moment, thinking about anything at all, thinking about purple elephants.
But in the case of death, the last jhana before death, it seems to be that there is a connection, because that thinking is what's going to happen next.
Even at that moment, no one knows.
ขณะเดียวไม่สามารถรู้ได้
When you say it's what's going to happen next, but that could be, still that could be right now. It could, this moment of thinking could be followed immediately by chuti citta. So what is thought about now can be the object of
So
the
that would be-
cittas of the next life.
What determines the next life? If I was thinking something about the future and I die, and that's
Then
what's
that
gonna
would,
be?
then that, if that is the object of the last moments of thinking and death comes, then that will be the object of the bhavanga cittas in the next life.
ปฏิสนธิภาวะเป็นจุติ of next life.
But that citta or its object is those javana, cittas in the javana process, and the object are conditioned by past karma. Is that right, Ajarn? So we can't say if I'm thinking about such and such.
It doesn't seem.
No.
But condition.
But if it's just one javana process, but one does hear about people before death seeing their future destiny, that would have to be many, many processes, wouldn't it?
So we end up talking about that which cannot be known.
Yes. So if it's just one javana process, that wouldn't be known, as it were, by the individual, because it's just so quick.
And it's not really, and it is really Javana process. It is, it's not a Javana process as what's happening now. It's, we
Because
call that Javana. It's not really.
because it's not after this, it's death yet.
But because when you say it's just like now, and it could be death right now, so that means at this moment of thinking, and when you say, well, this could be after this moment of thinking that death could come. So if it's time for death, then this last thinking is conditioned by karma to experience that
And
object.
even now, no one knows the object of Bhavanka.
Yes.
See?
So it could be anything at all. Just like thinking now can think about anything, so that in the next life the bhavanga can think about that object.
So it's nothing different from now. That last moment.
Because we don't know what will be next moment.
So-
And why do we have three objects as kamma and kamma nimitta and kati nimitta before death? The citta which arises has to be conditioned by akamma, and we don't know whether it is after seeing. And citta is kusala or akusala by previous karma to condition those moments to have such objects.
So could you give an example of what it's like to have an object conditioned by previous karma now, apart from seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching?
Do you think of what you have done before?
Yes.
Okay, by the action, by the shape of the tool
Right.
or the whatever.
By the sign of that. So it's actually those objects. It's just like now. The only reason they have those special names is just to refer to the object of those last moments. But actually, it's like now.
It's like when someone maybe in coma and all that, and maybe before that can have an image of grasses or like that can be a sign of you will be born as an animal. Can be. Nimitta.
Just like
So now I
now.
have a
Just like
question.
now.
No, I was just interested, Ajarn, because you talked about those three aspects there: Kamma Nimitta, Gati Nimitta, and what's the other one?
Kati nimitta,
Yeah, Gati Nimitta, Kamma, Gati.
Karma nimitta.
Kamma
Is that one?
nimitta,
You
and
said
kamma,
There's two,
aramana.
karma and karma
Just two of them.
There are three: karma nimitta, and gati nimitta.
So what's the difference between Kamma and Kamma Nimitta, Ajarn?
If it's the object like now,
Mhm.
it is kamma.
Right.
And when it's the sign of the tool or the instrument, like you think about once you go and fishing, something like that, then it is kamma nimitta. And for kitti nimitta, who knows?
And
Because
what was that last
kat-
one?
the last one,
Gati, yeah, means bird. Yes.
who knows? Because it's not yet die consciously. And even that is experienced as kati nimitta. Now the puvanka can be kati nimitta, but who knows?
Kati nimitta means.
Good.
sign of destiny.
But what is the difference between Kamma nimitta and Kati nimitta?
That's what Ajarn was just.
The karma, yeah, if you just listen more, it's better. Karma nimitta is the sign of anything that has been done in the past, like when you went shopping or going to the movies yesterday.
Or killing someone.
Yeah,
Killing
can
someone.
be. Yeah, anything.
And Gati nimitta. Gati nimitta is the sign of the place one's going to next. The sign, yeah. Well, sign of the
Yes.
plane, if you like, of the next rebirth.
Of the situation.
Sorry?
Of the situation.
The fire. Well, like as birth as a human or as an animal
Or in the hell.
or hell.
Heaven.
Yes, it's a sign
Brahma,
of that.
Whatever.
Not known now.
No.
No.
Not now.
When it's kati nimitta.
Because now, unless it's just before death, there's no sign of next destiny.
Unless
Oh.
we go to
So a
die.
sign of
You mean it's
the
something that is
plane that
known
will be.
before the death?
It's
Before
the,
death.
it can only be the object just before death. Yeah,
Or the last.
if it's not one of the others, karma or karma nimitta.
If you're going to die, then you might. But if not, then you can't. Not now. You still can live. อยู่ชีวิตได้มีชีวิตต่อได้
If it's the object now of citta, and chuti citta follows instantly, then it's just the object, unknown. Anything else about the moments before death or that topic, Vincent? Because you were asking about it. Everything clear? Because I thought there was some confusion when you were referring to these objects of those Javna cheetahs, like it was something special, like karma or karma nimitta, but it's just like now, just like the objects of kusala and akusala cheetahs now. So now could be death. And the only reason they're given those names is because they are those last moments, but it's just like common object now.
And is Gati nimitta always comes after Kamma nimitta? They're not related.
Just one.
One or the other.
Only one object of one cheetah, so the last cheetahs before death, one of these three is the object, that's all.
Ajarn, my dad and me has some conflict. Like
surprise! What a surprise!
we were having a question. like they're saying that when you are in hell, you can remember by what karma you did. Like suppose someone in Avechi, like Tevatat, or someone who is in hell can know also what karma make them to born in that realm. Is that true?
Because it's spontaneous birth.
So
Immediately
So Ludai,
at that time.
When you just
I don't even remember this conversation.
you were saying that you have to say from what karma you did. You don't believe me. I told you like this. I said
I don't remember. I don't
You
remember.
were
But
arguing
I
with
do
me.
know that in devas you can remember.
In hell also you can.
So if it's spontaneous, why not? Yeah.
Just like in ghost realm, the same, Peter realm, the same, because spontaneous birth. So maybe not much clearly, but like if you read about the Peter stories, then they can remember about what led up to their death, for example,
In that place.
in that previous existence, whether
Suppose like I was born
human
in-
existence or which animal whatever existence.
No, human and
exi-
animal can't because it's
In the womb.
No, when they're remembering the previous life, what happened before the death, before that birth in the Peter realm, so they can remember what deeds were done in the human realm before death, for example.
suppose I'm in hell right now. I can remember because I might kill someone because of what karma make me born in hell.
See,
Like
Yes,
they were
and that's only immediately after you there. But after some time, I wouldn't suppose you would remember. Your memories would have been faded after some time.
I mean what?
Just like a child here can remember some incidents, but later or forgotten, yes.
But the knowing of the karma that caused the rebirth and remembering of the previous life are two different things, aren't
But
they?
that doesn't make you believe in karma. That ไม่ทำให้ปัญญาเจอขึ้นเพราะอันนี้ไม่เกี่ยวกันใช่ไหม
ไม่เกี่ยวกัน
ไม่เกี่ยวกันต้องละเอียด means some people might think that อาจจะ it can maybe then karma is real, then it can accumulate in panya, but that's no. We have to very precise in Dhamma.
Otherwise, we would all believe in karma.
Then อาจจะ
Because we bought so
ป่านนี้ปรินิพพานกันหมดแล้ว
And if we want to be precise, it's not about I or anyone else who was in this realm and now I'm born as a ghost and I'm doing this and that. We're just talking about different dharmas. So because of the origination of that birth consciousness being spontaneous, they're just conditions for that kind of thinking about occurrences in the previous life, but it's not anyone who's reborn, or it's just different dharmas, different citas, cetasikas and rupas that are conditioned in those ways.
Like someone, we can appreciate that karma and the result karma is real. Like we can say that why some people maybe get fired, why someone have such a happy life or bad life. Some people may think it's unconditional, but if we can understand that that is a result of some cause, it can make me appreciate the karma at certain level. So it can possibly mean that the realm that have always people in fire also can possibly be, right?
But you have to
By
understand.
not thinking, but อาจจะทำให้เชื่อเป็นเหตุ
The only way to understand karma is to understand the difference between thinking and seeing.
No,
and
as a pariyati, we can appreciate. No, we can appreciate. Some people may think, we Bangkok suddenly to fall down from the stair by accidentally.
Vincent's last day.
Yeah, Ines, just remind Vincent, we would rather hear.
Okay.
Yeah, you can argue with your dad next week, but this is our last day, so let's have a little quiet now. And this is for Nina and Vincent and the visitors, so keep the arguments for home. Yes.
Yeah. No particular question. And you also your
And also my last
Yes,
one.
exactly. Anything you would like to raise? Yeah.
I have to think first.
Yeah. Okay, I have something that I would like to raise, Ajarn. So, when touching, hardness appears, and hardness can be known, and the mind door is there instantly, thinking about what has been touched, but it's not known because it's covered up by the touching, and it seems that the touching lasts. When it appears, when the mind door dharmas appear, and Panya knows them, it's quite different from Pariyatti, that's clear. Like now there's thinking about any nama object, any mind or object.
But what is the difference when it's different from the sense door process?
What is the difference? What is the difference is that when it's sense door object, then only sense door object appears, visible
And when
object
the mind
harness.
experience that after sense door?
Then it's the same reality, exactly. But it's not known that it's through the mind or sense door. And your comment was that now the mind door is covered up, say, by the touching or the sense door process.
The sense door covered or the mind door covered?
The mind door is covered up by the sense door process. And when the mind door appears and Panya knows it, it's different from like moments of pariyatti understanding, reflecting on Dhamma. And you said it's also different from patipati understanding. It must be pativeda, it must be nama rupa paricheda.
What is covered at this moment?
What is covered is the mind door.
The mind door covers sense door.
Right.
So in a day there are that which is seen, heard and so on, no understanding of mind door which also experience the
right,
objects.
the same objects. So when, let's say, talk about when it, so when it's direct understanding of hardness, it doesn't matter whether it's sense door or mind door or anything, it's just reality that's directly experienced. So when you say that when mind door appears, here by mind door appears, you're referring to, for example, the hardness that appears in the mind door.
No matter it is hardness or sound or whatever.
Any reality. And when you say it's, when Panya knows it, it's different from pariyatti or patipati. But why not at moments of satipatthana? I mean, it's
it is all the way satipatthana.
I mean, obviously it's not clear like
even
when it's
nibbana is satipatthana.
Tana, yes. Obviously it's, or patipati I should say, to differentiate. Obviously at moments of direct understanding, even if it's understood well, it's not clear like in vipassana jnana. But here you're saying that...
Why it's not as clear?
Because the understanding is not as... when it's patipati, it's not as clear as when it's...
Panya is not enough yet.
Panya is not of the
So
degree
the
of vipassana
mind door
jnana.
is always covered by the sense door.
Yes. But when that object appears, we'll say the hardness, and Panya knows it at level of direct understanding, and you say...
What level of understanding?
Patipati, direct
Patipati,
understanding.
okay.
And you said when it appears and Panya knows it, it's not pariyatti and patipati, it's must be pativeda.
At moment when satipatthana is there, the object appears better than...
I think that's all it's
Yeah,
being
but
referred
not
to.
Pativeda yet.
Yes. I think that's what... It was just a little confusion with the wording. And you were saying if mind door appears, mano dwara, it must be pativeda, otherwise what appears are only 5 sense
Senses.
door objects.
Mhm.
So when you say that if mind door appears, it must be pativeda because otherwise it's 5 sense door objects. But if it, at moments of direct understanding, let's say that patipati understanding at this moment, then it may be not the sense door object like hardness or visible object. It may be lobha or dosa or mind door object seeing whatever appears now. So why do you say only 5 sense door objects when it's, unless it's pativeda?
It is not like now.
just because it's not like this, not like
That's it.
pati pati, yes. So just referring to the degree, I think, yes.
So,
Okay.
Ajarn, do I understand this correctly? What you're saying here is that, like now, the sense door covers up mind door because there's no panya that sees the mind door process, because everything seems like there's seeing all the time of visible object, there's sound, there's thing. It's all like just sense door experiences. So even when it's at the level of satipatthana that knows, say, vedana, which is a mental reality, or any other concentration or any other mental reality, at that time it's still not a case of knowing mind door as distinct from sense door. That happens only at vipassana jnana and through the experience of sense door object that is immediately followed by the mind door. At that time, the panya knows the difference of the object that is first experienced through the sense door and then through the mind door.
Little by little. And now why do we say that the sense doors cover the mind door? Because even mind door experiences the same object as sense door. It does appear as mind door at all. This is pariyatti, to understand that there must be mind door after sense door. Each process of sense door.
Does not. What do we mean when we say it doesn't appear as mind door?
Okay, where's mind door now?
Because what appears, we've said that sense door process followed by a lot of thinking, and it's thinking that gives the idea of
Before
people and
thinking,
things.
before
Yeah.
thinking, mind door before thinking.
Right.
Just for the sense door instantly.
You're
after
talking about the
bhavanga.
door, yes. So this is different from saying that what appears now is the thinking rather than the actual sense door object, right?
We
because
now
we say
know.
sound is not experienced as sound. We just hear words and understand the meaning immediately. So
We
that's
now
thinking.
know from reading, but there must be mind door after sense door. For sure.
To clarify, we're talking about the mind door moment.
Before conceptualization, before all the concept being
Just
thought
now,
about, just right after
now,
the sense
who
doors.
knows
right.
the moment of mind door? Because the object appears exactly the same all the time.
And even if there is understanding of sound, it's just sound that is understood, no thought or idea of sense door or mind door. It's just the reality of sound. So when you said to Sukhin, he asked about vipassana jnana, and it's known whether it's visible object that's experienced in eye door or mind door, and you said little by little. What do you mean little by little? You mean because even at that moment it's just visible object that is directly
Are we
experienced.
talking about the patipati?
Now he,
Pativeda.
now he's talking
Quite
about
different from
Yes.
panya at level of patipati, which is quite different from intellectual understanding. So we have to understand that now. We learn from the book Tipitaka, after each sense door process, there must be mind door after bhavanga instantly. Where is now?
Yeah.
No one knows.
Yes,
So
that's right.
panya,
I was wrong to think that it's in the same sense door process, but it's the mind door that follows the sense door that is known
So-
at that time. Right now, even when
when you say-
there's thinking and there's maybe satipatthana of thinking as just thinking, it's still not a case of knowing mind door. Right.
Ajarn, but I'm confused why pati only can know only the sense door, but only pativeta know mind door.
is there mind door after seeing process?
Yes, they have.
Do you know that?
No, but so you mean that mind door cannot be object of pati but panya? I mean, cannot be.
At what level?
At what level?
Means ไม่สามารถเป็นอารมณ์ได้
เป็นได้
เป็นได้ใช่ไหม
That's satipatthana, but that's the panya is not at the level of Pativeda, which knows mind door as mind door.
I mean, Pativeta, then you can say sense door also. Then Pati, but it's not as clear.
That's
as
why
Pativeta.
we
It's not clear,
listen.
yeah, it's not as clear.
Yeah, that's why we listen from one word, just one by one word. Now we talk about there are many mind of processes after sense of who knows. Does it appear? Only the sense object appear all day because the sati is not there yet, even just a moment. We have to begin. What conditions satipatthana? Without understanding, there cannot be sati, which is directly aware of a reality by condition. See, it begins from no one, no one, no one. Only it's conditioned by what? So, who knows whether sati is now or not? Only when satipatthana arises. Otherwise, you cannot think of what is satipatthana, how it appears, what is its characteristic. It just says that be aware directly. What is meant by directly? See, because now no one knows from book that seeing is not self, but at moment of seeing, what and where or when is the understanding of seeing just now as not self. But from hearing and learning more and more and more, unexpectedly, when there are conditions for that moment, so it appears as anatta all the way, no one, little by little, to have more experience with right understanding of different level. So when there are conditions for satipatthana, the direct awareness to arise, who knows when, of what object, right? But the understanding begins to see the difference between the direct understanding and when we are just talking about seeing and hearing, and it's not direct understanding or direct awareness yet. So Patipatti cannot be Pativeda, but there can be the understanding of the level of Satipatthana, that it's not just talking much about this and that without the direct understanding of anyone yet. So when Satipatthana arises, the object appears, begin to be well.
But mind door can be the object of Patipat.
Yes.
Yes.
Anything can be.
But now the point is there are mind door processes in between each sense door process, but completely unknown. It seems like seeing last or hearing a sound last, but in between each sense door process there are mind door processes, but not known at all.
So I'm appreciating so much all the time how you bring back whatever questions people ask, you always bring it back to now. And it's such a good reminder. And I had a conversation with Sundara the other day, and that is so important. And Sundara said, yes, and we have to begin again. And it is forgotten all the time. And even the forgetting we take for self. It's self that forgets.
Is there any doubt about the Satipatthana now? It's not intellectual understanding, and it's not only when it has risen that it is aware of the object appears well because of what? Why now it does not appear well, but when just one object appears well because Satipatthana, it's there, direct awareness of that object as being conditioned. No one make it arise at all.
And Sukhin, when you referred to mind door being known or not known, what reality are you talking about?
Level of Panya.
No, when
When
you're talking
it's
to
known, that
mind,
means
no,
that-
mind door, what are you referring to as mind door?
Some mind door reality.
An object experienced through the mind door.
Yeah.
This is from book.
This is a good one.
Yeah, because sometimes there's confusion. I think it's people talk about understanding mind or reality, and then they have the wrong idea that one's talking about Bhavangacita. I think I corrected something you said about this a long time ago because it's misunderstood.
No one can know that.
Yeah, it's
What
misunderstood.
would you say again? What is misunderstood?
I remember a long time ago you mentioned in something you wrote about, because we'd heard about knowing or not knowing, mind door, the mind door, and you thought that Ajarn was referring to Bhavangacita, which is mind door reality, which is the mind door. Mind door. So it can be misunderstood if one just talks about understanding of mind door. Yes.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So what is being referred to exactly?
I think what is being referred to is any object experienced through the mind door, not the reality, which is mind door. So I think it has to be clear. You think it can be misunderstood too? Yes.
Yes, very high level of Panya. Why not?
Patipat.
Not Patipat.
Why?
Can Patipat know mind door? Acha.
Think about it,
Can think about
not
it.
experience, because it is not Pativeda. That's why we have to understand what is
But
meant
5 senses
by
Patipat can.
Pativeda.
ใช่ไหม
I think what's important is that we don't know seeing. So you want to know that eye door. So we don't know seeing yet.
By eye door, you mean the eye base, eye sense.
Yeah.
When Satipatthana does not appear yet, it hasn't risen yet. How can one know what is meant by appear well at level of Satipatthana? And what about at level of Pativeda? So we live in the world of thinking, concepts from birth to death.
Fantasy like science.
Even when we're talking about understanding mind door, it can be fantasy thinking, nothing to do with understanding Dhamma now. So it depends.
No,
It depends. Pariyat is understanding.
Is understanding, but to make it a
Concept
more,
aside.
Ajarn uses the word delirious thinking per Dhamma.
So when I try to explain in Holland about appear well, people will ask me, can I give a text where it is explained, appear well?
When there's not enough panya or when there's no panya, it's different. And when there is panya at level of intellectual understanding, one just learn about realities but not direct experience yet.
But in the text, is there any reference?
For example, what's in the text about?
Appear well. I don't
Appear
know.
well. Then one knows that why it's not well. What about the Satipatthana? If we don't know what Satipatthana is, can they be conditioned to have Satipatthana arising?
And the chant appear well is reference to appearing well to Panya or appearing well to Sati.
Only Sati without Panya, the object cannot appear
So
well.
both.
It means Panya with Sati.
Appear well means but is either Patipat or Pativeda. Appear well. True.
Moments of Satipatthana before it's Vipassana Jnana. When it's Vipassana Jnana, which is Pativeda, then appears even more clearly.
Even well. More.
Better.
Clearly.
So,
And on that point about fantasy thinking, because like when I've used it, as they both mentioned, I refer to it as like delirious thinking or being lost in one's daydreams and stories. So like manyati, or thinking with lobha, thinking with ignorance, nothing known at all. But the other day in one of the discussions, there was a comment about metta, and you made the comment, I think, that even at moments of metta, it could be said to be fantasy, and only when it's direct understanding of reality in the path, that it's not fantasy, because like we know, even jhana in one sense can be referred to the wrong path because it's not leading to the way out of samsara. So you were saying that this is a deeper meaning, that even when it's not understanding of reality, even when it's other kinds of kusala, even jhana, in that sense it's
Many
fantasy,
degrees.
different degrees, layers and layers.
Like example of Sodaban, Sakatakhami, Anakami have dream. Arahata cannot have dream because ไม่เยื่อใยภาษาอังกฤษเรียกว่าอะไรอะ
No.
Suppose I have a good dream, right, about like a Sodaban have a good dream about having friend and all that with metta. So it can be fantasy with kusala chit also, but without panya. So you can dream also. So without panya, it's fantasy.
And the other day, this is for Roti and Sukin, about Pandra, because even in the Chinese sessions it came up, and Sukin said, oh, well, for him, he just thinks that when Chitta experiences clearly, but actually it's the nature of Chitta itself, which is Pandra. It's not just the way, it's not the way it experiences, but the nature of Chitta itself
No, I thought about that.
is Pandra. And one of the, I just came across a reference this morning actually, and it was talking about even the akusala chittas now are Pandra because they flow from the Bhavanga chitta. And the example given in the text often is
Flow from.
the Bhavanga chitta, they follow the Bhavanga chitta. And often the example given in the text, like the Atasalani, is about the Ganges. So at the source of the Ganges, the river is completely pure. There's no debris, there's no inflow of any intoxicants. So it's clear. And then by the time it gets to time it gets to even Rishikesh, people are bathing in the water. I read an article about why there's so much resistance to antibiotics in parts of in the world, and they've done a big study on the Ganges. So even by the time it gets to Rishikesh, in winter it's still pretty pure, but when all the tourists and visitors come in the summer and everyone bathes in it, then it's already quite dirty. There are already the intoxicants in the water. And then by the time it gets to Varanasi, it's like a cesspool. But the point is that the Ganges itself, the flow of river from the source, is Pandra all the way through, but it's made foul by all the debris and intoxicants that contaminate it. And that's what it's meant by chitta as Pandra.
So that's the
chitta
meaning of
itself is
chitta.
pure.
That is the meaning of chitta as Pandra, means that
To make difference between chitta and citasikas.
I think that's what it is.
Yes.
Just showing the difference, because when it's Bhavanga chitta, it still has chetasikas. Still, we have to make the distinction between the
Chitta and chetasikas.
chetasika. So it's just showing the difference between chitta and chetasika.
เพราะเป็นนามธรรม
The chitta itself is always Pandra, no matter what. And I think, and the simile about the akusala chittas coming from the Bhavanga, it's like in this life, the chitta itself is pure, the Bhavanga chitta is pure. There are no akusala chittas,
But that's
chetasikas at
but
that
that's not the
moment.
meaning of Bhavanga that's intended to show that chitta is different from all.
Oh, Pandra,
Pandra.
yes, but that's the way they describe it. Yeah, but and the simile of the Ganges, like even at the source, there are other factors, but the chitta itself is always Pandra. Yeah, but the reason they mention the Bhavanga chitta is like when they talk about Pabasra, when it's Kusala or Kusala Vipaka is Pabasra, but actually each chitta is Pandra because it flows from those Bhavanga chittas, or the chitta itself is not the contaminating force. It's the Chaitasikas that contaminate.
Anantara Pachai is, I'm talking something.
Yeah, I was talking something else. When you say flowing from the Bhagavanga Chitas, I don't really quite understand, because Bhagavanga Chitta is also Chitta, so what flows from the Bhagavanga Chitta?
The point is just being made, like in this realm, there is nothing akusala about the Bhagavanga Chittas. So a bit like the Ganges at the source, there's nothing contaminated at the source. But when the akusala Chaitasikas arise, they contaminate, they condition the chitta in an unwholesome way. But it's just an example. It's just showing that the chitta itself is always pandara.
But also the kusala, not only a kusala contaminates the pandara, right? Also the kusala.
No. Actually, it's just showing that, as Ajarn said, it's just showing that what's the difference between chitta and chittasika. What it's like.
Yeah, but she's talking only about akusala.
Yes,
No.
but when kusala chaitasikas arise, we don't talk about them as contaminating. Like kusala chittas are also pabasara, luminous, radiant. Or if we're talking about the example of the Ganges,
But it's probably a
if
different...
purified water is added to the Ganges at the source, we don't say it's contaminated. It's only contaminated by kusala. But any chitta is pandara.
But for example, in the example of the Ganges River, we could say that chitta is H2O, right? The water itself.
Okay, so
right?
that's pandara.
So anything you add to H2O, even if it's like a human excrement or something beautiful, some flower scent or something, both are you're adding something to the H2O.
Yeah, but the H2O is still a H2O.
Yeah.
That's
The
the
others,
point.
the other things are still separate, compounds.
I understand it very well as the H2O will be H2O all the way to Calcutta. But what I don't get is the difference between human excrement and flower scent, because both means you're adding something to the H2O.
That's why there is Chittanupasana Satipatthana of every kind of chitta.
Whatever it is.
It sounds like one enhances it, luminous, radiant, the other defiles.
That's the point. It's just stressing that in these examples that even when it arises with akusala, let alone at any other time, it's still pandara because it's the akusala factors that contaminate it. And that's why even though some chittas like kusala chittas are luminous or radiant, in this way all chittas are pandara. That's just what it's about.
Yeah, but one way also, like they're saying that when kusala chitta arise in Thai, they say chamra chit hai sa'at. Mean it's saying like always the chitta are contaminated by akusala, so kusala clean, like in the meaning chamra chit hai sa'at means clean the what always like kasaya of akusala go. You can appreciate that.
No, what Haji is saying is that in Thai they use chamra chit hai sa'at means to purify the chitta, means with development of understanding.
ไม่อาจจะกุศลธรรมทุกประการ
In this case, that's quite different from when one's talking about chitta as pandara right from the outset, before there's any a totally different. That is talking about the function of panya to purify. This is talking about the nature of any chitta as pandara.
ใช่จิต like จิตก็สกปรกด้วยอกุศลใช่ไหมแล้วที่ชำระก็คือชำระ
So it's
I
different
think-
meaning of sa'at.
I think it's very easy to confuse, because we're to confuse the pandara nature of chitta, to confuse it with kusala. Like,
No.
I mean, it's
not
easy.
Two different.
Maybe
two
that's
things.
why
Yeah.
so many schools do that have done that through the centuries.
That's why the topic comes up, like we're asked about it a lot. And this is why this is pointing out the distinction, how even akusala chittas are pandara. Yeah.
Vincent, please.
So, Ajarn, you just referred to Chitta Pasana. So, what you're saying is that through the development of understanding of Chitta,
To understand Chitta as not self,
as not self, and
no
then
matter it is seeing, hearing, or whatever.
And that at some point, then when the understanding is high enough, then the meaning of Chitta being Pandara can be known.
I think it's pointing to how the chitta itself, like chitta arising with lobha, the chitta rooted in lobha is different from the lobha. So the chitta itself can be understood. And even though it's rooted in lobha, the chitta is not lobha. It's pure, but the chitta is quite different from the lobha that arises.
Different from Panya.
Yes.
In that section, it says that the bhikkhu knows citta with lobha as citta with lobha, and citta with dosa as citta with dosa. So I think it must be, as Sarah said, that it's referring to the difference between the citta and the lobha or the dosa that arises together with it.
So that means, in that, it means that knowing the difference between the Chitta and the Chittasikas, one is Chittanupassana, the other is Dhammanupassana. As understanding develops, one comes also to the understanding that Chitta itself is Pandara.
Different from Chetasikas.
Ajarn, if we are going to stop this, and if no one really has question, I want to.
No one said that they finished their questions.
Okay.
We wait for next week.
Wait for next week, exactly.
Ajarn pushed her right, so you know, we are waiting for her.
Eve has a question.
I just in affirming this information is that what is being discussed is the characteristic of citta is different from the characteristic of akusala. Is that?
It's gone. It's impossible to understand that moment. But from hearing, we can understand the difference between this citta and the other citta. That's all. But to know that citta is not cetasika, it appears as that which experiences. At that moment, even lobha is there, it's not known. But the understanding of no self is the truth of all dhammas.
So Eve, the difference between citta and cetasika rather than between citta and akusala.
คุณสุนทรา would you like to ask Ajarn whether the topic that we discussed last 2 days ago, that about the Paccatthavaravachanajit, when it appears in the sense door process, it's only called the chak, like seeing, before seeing is Chakku Thavaravachanajit, or we call it Pancatthavaravachanajit, right? Is it right?
Well, Ajarn, I thought, made a very keen point early on when she was talking with the Chinese people. She said, this is how I understood it, that awachana citta it's a kriya citta, and it can have any object. different from panchavijnana, which must be either seeing or hearing or smelling. So Ajarn asked the question, which I'm trying to put together now to help people to see that Kiriya Chittas at the sense door process there does not mind what the object is. It's either seeing, hearing, smelling, or it's before in the Vajjana process. So, but when it's panchadwara, panchavijnana, excuse me, then it has to be either seeing or hearing or smelling. She was making a, as I heard it, a differentiation between avajjana and panchavijnana. Is that?
I think the point being made was, the question was, why is Panchadwara Vajjana Chitta Kiriya Chitta? Why is it not Vipaka Chitta? That was one point.
No, wasn't that.
No, what's the question?
That was Ajarn's question, yes.
But Kun Suntara just has doubt about the name when we call it Panchatawara Vajjana Chitta. And Jakutawara Vajjana Chitta.
Well, we don't say, as I remember, we don't say Pancha Dwara Vajjana Chitta. We don't say Chaku Dwara Vajjana. We don't say that.
Why not?
Because it's a Kiriya Chitta and it can take any object.
Same point.
So the point was, when Ajarn asked this question, what she was asking was, why is it Kiriya Chitta at that moment, not Vipaka Chitta? And if it's Vipaka Chitta, it can only experience one object, but Panchadwara Vajjana can experience through any sense door.
Yes, I know that, but it's just the name, Panchatawara Vajjana Chitta or Jakutawara Vajjana Chitta that we call when it's the seeing process.
Does it matter about the name? Not important. It doesn't matter at all. And just to come back to a point I mentioned in passing the other day about contemplating dhammas in Satipatthana Sutta, and it mentioned that his mind becomes concentrated, samadhi, and the upakalesa are abandoned, and he picks up that sign. Here, when it refers to the kalesa being abandoned, pahiyanti, then it means completely abandoned at stages of enlightenment. Is that correct?
Is it used in other places as well? Abandoned.
Well, like we said, there are 5 kinds of abandoning, so one has to look at the context as to...
There are many
like it's
words
also referring to like Tadanga Pahana.
Many
referring
degrees,
to
that's all.
Vipassana Jnana. So it could, like, even when it's Vipassana Jnana, it's referred to as partial abandoning, on the way to complete abandoning. Like at Vipassana Jnana, it's partial abandoning because definitely enlightenment will occur, and that's why at the second stage of Vipassana Jnana it's referred to as Chula Sotapanna, so it's like partial abandoning. So here when it refers to the Kalesa being abandoned and picking up the sign, does it refer to enlightenment or can be Vipassana Jnana? Or
it depends on Panya at that very moment to know.
Right, or at that moment, right. And so then the sign would be of what has been abandoned at what level, I think. Okay, thank you. Just one other quick point on discussing the ayatanas, like sometimes the manayatana sometimes it refers to the 6 doors, like obviously I sense and so on, and then mind door, the last Bhavanga Chitta. Sukhin's point reminded me. So they mentioned Bhavanga Chitta, but it refers to Bhavanga Chitta and actually any chitta. It's a bit like Upeka, and any reality is the third kind of dukkha, but Bhavanga Chitta for short. And then sometimes it refers to, sometimes in the text for Dhammayatana, sometimes it's translated or referred to as 6 doors and 6 objects, but objects is, I think, misleading for Dhammayatana because it includes any subtle rupa, cetasika, nibbana. And for example, the cetasikas are not just when they are object, but also when they're arising with citta. But the other day when someone mentioned about objects, and I mentioned it's referring to these realities, and you said, can cetasika be the object? It can be the object, but it's also Dhammayatana whenever it arises.
It depends on what we are talking about.
Yes.
When we talk about ayatana, we don't mean object at all. We
at
just talk about that which is manayatana and dhammayatana.
Yes. So that's why, because I'm just helping correct something in Abhidhamma in daily life, and I think it may be wrong in the Thai too, when it refers to 6 doors and 6 objects, and then people even think concepts are included and there's a lot of confusion. So I think it needs to be clear that manayatana refers to any citta and dhammayatana refers to any subtle rupa, cetasika or nibbana. Otherwise people just think in terms of objects, which is misleading. They mix it up with,
and object.
and that's why they mix up ayatanas with dhamma ramana and think it's the same. So it needs to be very clear, this point, I think.